Chapter 1: Merit is a Lie. I learned early that being an alpha didn't mean being powerful. It meant expectations. It meant disappointment. It meant being measured against something I never asked to be born with and failing anyway. Recessive, they called it, like a flaw in a blueprint, like a warning label. Other alphas could walk into a room and have it bend around them. Teachers listened. Packs deferred. Even their mistakes were forgiven as growing pains. Mine were proof. Every stumble confirmed what they already believed, that I was an alpha in name only, a genetic misprint that slipped through the sorting process. So I learned to sharpen other things. My mouth, first. If they were gonna mock me, I'd make it hurt. My mind, next. I studied until exhaustion blurred the pages. My discipline, last. I never let myself react first. Never let them smell fear. By the time I graduated, I was exhausted and proud in equal measure. Not because I'd survived them, but because I'd done it without relying on what I was born as. Merit. That was supposed to be enough. The city believed in merit. Humans and werewolves worked side by side there. Collars and classifications muted beneath tailored suits and polite professionalism. No packs. No posturing. Just results. I believed in it the way drowning people believe in air. The internship offer came 3 weeks after graduation. Mid-tier firm. Competitive program. My name printed cleanly at the top of the email, no asterisks, no annotations about my secondary gender. I didn't tell anyone how badly I needed it. The office dinner was meant to celebrate the end of our first quarter. A reward. Networking. Normalcy. I wore my best jacket. Cheap, but clean. And practiced smiling in the bathroom mirror until my face felt like it belonged to someone else. By the time I arrived, the restaurant was already loud with voices and clinking glasses. Alphas clustered instinctively, even when they pretended not to. Betas floated between groups. Humans laughed easily, unburdened by the undercurrent that never quite went away for the rest of us. My boss found me before I'd even sat down. "Liam," he said. Too close, hand firm on my shoulder. "There you are." I froze for half a second too long, then relaxed on purpose. Smiled on purpose. "Sir." He laughed at that. Still so formal. "Come on, loosen up. Tonight's a celebration." He steered me toward the bar. Ordered for both of us without asking. The glass he slid across the counter was sweating, cold and clear. "Drink," he said. "You earned it." I hesitated. The room felt too warm. Too loud. "Just one," I said. He watched me closely as I took the first sip. The taste was wrong. Too sweet, covering something bitter underneath. I set the glass down. His gaze sharpened. Focused. That was when he realized. The shift was subtle, but I'd lived my whole life watching for it. The way his posture adjusted. The way his expression changed from indulgent to intent. "An alpha," he murmured, almost to himself, "didn't peg you for one." My stomach dropped. "It doesn't matter," I said quickly. "I don't." He waved it off. "Relax. I'm not complaining." His hand slid from my shoulder to my lower back. I stepped away. "I should check on the others," I said. "Make the rounds." He blocked me with his body, still smiling. "Stay," he said. "Have another." "I'm good." Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance. Curiosity. Challenge. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Don't be difficult." I smelled it then. Something chemical beneath the cologne. My heart started to race. Too fast. Out of sync with my thoughts. "I need air," I said. And this time I didn't wait for permission. I pushed past him and walked. Not fast. Not yet. I made it to the hallway, then the exit sign, then the door. Cold night air hit my face like a slap. I ran. The city blurred as I moved, shoes slapping pavement, breath tearing out of my chest. My thoughts scattered, refusing to line up. I didn't know how much of the drink I'd swallowed. I didn't know how long it would take to wear off. I turned a corner too sharply and collided with something solid. Someone. Hands caught my arms before I could fall. Strong. Steady. "Careful," a voice said, low and calm. I looked up, and whatever I was about to say died in my throat. He was tall, dressed in black that probably cost more than my rent for a year. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes too focused for a stranger at midnight. He smelled like nothing I recognized. No alpha bite. No omega sweetness. Just clean. Still. I wrenched myself back, heart hammering. "Sorry," I snapped. I didn't. His gaze flicked over me, assessing in a way that felt invasive despite the distance. I knew my pheromones were leaking. Fear did that. Stress. Humiliation. I hated that he could probably tell. You're unwell, he said. I'm fine. A lie. A reflex. He tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. You should sit, he said. Before you fall. I laughed, sharp and ugly. What, are you my doctor now? Something shifted in his expression. Not anger. Interest. No, he said. But I don't think you ran this far for fresh air. I should have walked away. Instead, I said the worst thing I could think of, the thing I always said when I felt cornered. Don't flatter yourself, I told him. I'm not trying to get your attention. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Then very softly he smiled. And for reasons I couldn't explain, drugged, exhausted, furious at the world, I felt like I just stepped into something I wouldn't be able to leave. Not anymore. And I got up and ran. Chapter 2, Anomaly. I didn't see him. I felt him. The impact knocked the air out of my lungs. I staggered, the world tilting violently as my shoulder collided with something immovable. Strong hands caught me before I hit the pavement. Too strong. Let go, I snapped, already twisting away. He didn't. I yanked harder, panic spiking hot and sharp in my chest. The drug still crawled through my veins, turning my balance unreliable, my instincts jagged. I hated being touched when I wasn't steady. Let go, I said again, voice cracking into something ugly. He inhaled. Not casually, not politely, deep, slow, intentional. The sound raised the hair on my arms. His grip tightened, not painful, just absolute, like a lock clicking shut. I looked up. His eyes were fixed on me with a focus so intense it made my stomach drop. Not hunger, not arousal, recognition. No, he said quietly. The word wasn't for me. It was for himself. I tried to wrench free. He caught my wrist. That was when fear took over. I struck him. Once, my fist connecting with his chest. Again, wild, uncontrolled. Don't touch me, I shouted. He didn't react, didn't even blink. Instead, he stepped forward and dragged me into him. One arm locking around my back, crushing me against his body. I struggled, breath tearing out of me, panic spiraling. Stop, I snarled, shaking violently. Get off. He lowered his head and froze. His body went utterly still. I felt it then, the shift. Not pheromones responding. Something breaking. His breathing changed. Shallow. Controlled. Too controlled. His pupils dilated until his eyes went nearly black. This is impossible, he murmured. The air changed. Not pressure. Authority. Something ancient and wrong pressed down on my instincts, bypassing thought entirely. My knees buckled without permission. My vision tunneled. I bit him. Hard. My teeth sank into the inside of his wrist. Blood flooded my mouth. He didn't flinch. Didn't loosen his hold. Instead, his arm tightened, locking me in place as if my resistance meant nothing at all. Footsteps rushed toward us. Sir. Hands reached for me. The man, Edgar, though I didn't know his name yet, lifted his head and growled. Not loud. Final. The guards froze. Then they dropped. Knees hitting pavement in unison. The sound echoed in my skull. My body folded completely. Whatever was left of my strength drained out of me in one sick rush. If he hadn't been holding me, I would have collapsed. He adjusted his grip and lifted me effortlessly, blood still running down his wrist. You're coming with me, he said. Not a threat. A fact. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. My head lolled against his shoulder as he carried me toward a black car that seemed to materialize out of the night. The city blurred, swallowed whole by the space he occupied. Inside the car, he didn't release me, didn't soothe, didn't apologize. He looked down at me like I was a contradiction that offended the laws of nature. Enigmas do not respond, he said softly, to pheromones, to instincts, to biology. His fingers tightened once at my jaw, forcing my face up. And yet, he continued, eyes dark and unwavering, you triggered something that should not exist. The car door shut, locks engaged. I realized, with terrifying clarity, that whatever had just awakened in him was not desire. It was claim logic. and I was no longer a person to him. I was an anomaly that needed to be contained, corrected, made permanent. Chapter 3, Containment. I don't remember the drive. I remember fragments, streetlights sliding across the ceiling of the car like slow, blinking eyes, the steady weight of his arm across my body, not restraining me so much as deciding where I stayed, the metallic taste of blood still lingering on my tongue. Every time I shifted, his grip tightened just enough to remind me it was pointless. Not painful. Final. The car stopped without warning. Doors opened. Cool air rushed in, sharp enough to make me gasp. I was lifted again, carried as if my weight had already stopped mattering. Somewhere distant, voices murmured. Guards, staff, I couldn't tell. No one questioned him. No one even looked directly at me. That terrified me more than the force. Inside, the space swallowed sound. Thick carpet, high ceilings, the kind of quiet that belonged to money and power and decisions that never needed witnesses. He laid me down on something soft. A bed I realized dimly. White, immaculate, too clean. My body shuddered as soon as he released me. I curled instinctively, trying to make myself smaller, fighting the strange weakness dragging at my limbs. My head throbbed. My skin felt wrong. Too tight, too warm, like my nerves were humming out of tune. He stood at the edge of the bed, watching. You're still unstable, he said. His voice hadn't changed since the street. Calm, controlled, almost clinical. The drug hasn't fully metabolized. Let me go, I whispered. It sounded pathetic even to my own ears. He ignored that. I should not be able to sense you, he continued, more to himself than to me. Enigmas are insulated. We do not register. He reached out. Not to touch me, but to hover his hand over my chest, just above my heart. I flinched anyway. And yet, he said quietly, your presence triggered a response consistent with imprint-level anomaly. I didn't understand half the words. I understood the tone. I tried to push myself up. My arms shook and gave out almost immediately. He watched without intervening, expression unreadable, until I collapsed back onto the bed, breath coming in ragged pulls. Don't, he said then, not unkindly. You'll hurt yourself. Anger flared, hot and sharp enough to cut through the fog. You already did. I spat. Something flickered in his eyes. Not guilt. Interest. He moved then, finally, decisively. Sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could feel him without touching. His presence pressed in on me, heavy and absolute, like gravity had decided to favor him. This is not harm, he said. This is containment. His hand closed around my wrist again, turning it palm up. I saw the blood where I'd bitten him earlier, already cleaned, already clotting, like it hadn't mattered. You reacted as expected, he continued. Fear, aggression, resistance. He looked at me then, really looked. And yet you're still here. I didn't choose this, I said. No, he agreed. You didn't. That was worse than an argument. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed my cheek. I felt that strange, unbearable weight settle over me again. Not a scent exactly, not something I could name, but a pressure that sank into my instincts and rearranged them against my will. My body responded before my mind could catch up. Heat pooled low in my spine, nauseating and overwhelming. My muscles went slack, trembling. I clenched my jaw, humiliation burning through me. Stop, I whispered. Please. He paused. Not immediately, just long enough for me to feel how bad it could get. Then the pressure eased, enough for me to breathe again, enough to remind me that he controlled the margin between bearable and unbearable. Your physiology is reacting, he said. Not your desire. I hated that he knew the difference. I will correct this, he continued calmly. Permanently, if necessary. My heart slammed against my ribs. Correct, what? You, he said. There was no cruelty in it. No heat. Just certainty. He shifted closer, his hand sliding up to cradle the back of my neck. The touch wasn't rough, but it anchored me in place, fingers spreading through my hair with terrifying familiarity. What happened next blurred. Not because it was gentle, but because my mind refused to hold onto it whole. I remember the sense of being overwhelmed, of pressure and heat and that unbearable presence wrapping around me until there was nowhere left to run inside my own head. I remember the sound of my own breathing breaking, the way my body arched and then stilled against my will. I remember him saying my name, not kindly, not cruelly, claimingly. What happened next was gentle. His hands were everywhere and nowhere at once. Steady, firm, impossibly sure of where I was allowed to move and where I wasn't. Every time I tensed, he corrected me with quiet efficiency, guiding me back down, back still. I didn't go still willingly. I fought. The moment his hands closed around me again, something feral tore loose in my chest. I twisted, kicked, tried to drag myself backward off the bed. Off him, off whatever this was becoming. The room tilted violently, my breath coming in sharp, ugly bursts. "Don't," I snarled, voice breaking. "Don't touch me." His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, just enough to make it clear that hurting me was a choice he wasn't making yet. "Easy," he said, low and steady. "Thrashing will only make it worse." I tried to shove him away anyway. My palms hit his chest. Solid. Unyielding. He didn't rock back an inch. "Get off me," I shouted. "I didn't ask for you." He caught both my wrists in one hand and pinned them above my head with frightening ease. The other slid to my shoulder, pressing me down into the mattress until it bowed under my weight. The panic exploded. I bucked, arching, teeth bared like an animal. "Let go of me." "Shoo!" he said immediately, voice softening instead of sharpening. "No, don't do that." The contrast between my violence and his calm made something in me stutter. His hand slid to the back of my neck again, fingers spreading wide there, grounding, inescapable. "Breathe," he murmured. "Slowly, like this." I refused. I held my breath until spots danced in my vision, until my chest burned. He didn't release me, didn't rush, just waited, patient as stone, until my body betrayed me and dragged air back into my lungs in a ragged gasp. "There," he said quietly. "That's better." I shook my head, hard, trying to break free of his hold. "Stop talking to me like that." "Like what?" Like I'm—" I choked on the word. "Small. Like I'm nothing." His hand stilled for a fraction of a second. Then it resumed its steady pressure. "You're not nothing," he said calmly. "You're overwhelmed." I laughed short, hysterical. "You're doing this. And I'm keeping you together," he replied, unbothered. The air grew heavy again. Not a scent I could describe. Not something I could block. It pressed inward, sinking beneath my skin, dragging heat and weakness through my limbs until my muscles started to shake on their own. I whimpered despite myself. His thumb brushed once over my wrist. Not soothing, not cruel. Measuring. "That's it," he murmured when my struggling slowed just a fraction. "Your body knows when to stop." "I don't want this," I said, voice hoarse. "I don't, please." The word please slipped out without permission. His grip tightened in response. Not restraint, but confirmation. "I know," he said softly. "You don't have to want it." I tried one last time, twisting sharply, trying to tear my hands free, trying to sit up. The effort drained out of me halfway through. My arms fell back uselessly, my strength bleeding away as the pressure built higher, heavier, drowning. My thoughts scattered. Anger blurred into fear, fear into something wordless and raw. "Stop," I whispered again. "Please. I can't." He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching mine. "Shoo," he whispered. "You're doing so well." I shook my head weakly, tears stinging my eyes. I'm not. "Yes, you are," he said, unwavering. "You're still here. You're still breathing." His hand slid slowly down my spine, deliberate, controlling the tremors instead of causing them. "Good boy," he said quietly, when my body finally stilled under his hands. Not relaxed, not calm, just unable to keep fighting. Just stay right there. The praise shattered something in me. I hated how my chest hitched, hated how my body went slack, hated how relief crept in alongside the fear when the pressure finally eased. Just a little. I lay there shaking, breaths coming shallow and uneven, staring at nothing. He didn't move away, didn't release me fully. He adjusted me with care I hadn't earned, straightened my limbs, covered me as if this were routine. One hand stayed between my shoulder blades, anchoring me to the bed, to the moment, to him. "There," he said softly. "All settled." I turned my face away, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My body felt wrong. too quiet in places that had always screamed, too aware of the weight of his hand, his voice, his presence. "As long as you're with me," he said almost gently, "nothing will hurt you except me." And the worst part, the part one couldn't stop thinking about, was how certain he sounded that this was care. Chapter 4, Release. I woke up alone. That was the first thing I noticed. Not pain, not fear, not confusion. Absence. The room was quiet in the way expensive places always are. Sound swallowed before it can echo. Morning light filtered through sheer glass, pale and indifferent. I lay still for a long time, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. No pressure. No voice. No hands. I sat up too fast, heart slamming, breath sharp in my throat. Nothing stopped me. I looked down at myself. Clean clothes. Not mine. Soft. Folded with care. My body felt wrong. Not injured. Not sore in the way I expected. Just altered. Like something had been rearranged while I wasn't looking. I slid off the bed. My knees held. That almost sent me to the floor. I stood there, barefoot on cold stone, shaking. Not because I couldn't stand, but because I could. The door wasn't locked. I stared at it for a long moment, convinced it was a trick. When I turned the handle and it opened without resistance, a sharp laugh tore out of me before I could stop it. Freedom. The word felt hysterical in my mouth. The apartment was empty, immaculate. No signs of struggle. No guards. No Edgar. On a table near the door sat my phone, fully charged. Beside it, my wallet. Keys. Everything accounted for. Even my jacket, cleaned, pressed, folded like an apology. There was no note. That was deliberate. I left before I could think too hard about it. The elevator descended in smooth silence. No one stopped me. The lobby staff didn't look twice as I walked past. Shoulders hunched, heart trying to claw its way out of my chest. Outside, the city hit me like a wave. Noise, people, movement, life. I walked, then I ran. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and the streets turned familiar and ugly and safe. My apartment building looked smaller than I remembered. Concrete chipped and tired. But when I fumbled my keys and the door opened, relief nearly dropped me to my knees. I locked it, then locked it again. I showered until my skin went raw. The water ran brown, then clear again. I scrubbed my neck, my wrists, every place I could reach, trying to erase the memory of hands that knew exactly how to hold me still. When I finally shut the water off, steam filled the bathroom, curling around me like breath. I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same. I didn't feel it. Something about my scent was wrong. Not stronger, not weaker. Just layered. Like a note I couldn't wash away no matter how hard I tried. My stomach twisted. I dressed, sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the wall until my hands stopped shaking. By afternoon, I convinced myself of a lie. That it was over. I went to work the next day. The city swallowed me the way it always had. Commuters, noise, schedules. No one stopped me. No one dragged me back. For a few precious hours, I almost believed I'd been released. Then people started reacting. Not openly. Not enough to call it out. A pause in conversation when I passed. A glance that lingered too long. An Omega coworker stepping subtly away from me in the elevator. Eyes flicking to my throat and then down. At lunch, Marcus. Another intern, dominant alpha, loud and confident. Wrinkled his nose slightly and laughed. "Damn," he said. "What cologne is that?" "I'm not wearing any," I snapped. He shrugged, but his eyes sharpened. Curious. Assessing. Later, in the bathroom, I caught a human colleague staring at me through the mirror. When our eyes met, she looked away too fast. That night, I called a helpline. Omega writes. Anonymous. Calm voices trained to listen. The woman on the other end paused when I described the incident. Careful with my words. Avoiding names. "Did an enigma formally declare intent?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "I didn't consent to anything." Another pause. Longer this time. "If an enigma has initiated a bond," she said carefully, "the legal framework is complicated." "Complicated how?" "I'm sorry," she said, and I could hear the sincerity in it. "You should speak to a lawyer." I did. Two, actually. The first refused the case outright. The second listened longer, asked sharper questions, then leaned back in his chair and sighed. Enigma cases aren't like normal claims, he said. Especially not Blackwell tier. My stomach dropped. You know who it is, I said. He didn't answer that. Look, he continued, voice lowered. If an enigma declares a mate, the state presumes stabilization necessity. It's considered protective. Protective, I echoed. He winced. I didn't write the law. So I can refuse, I said. Right? He hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. I left his office shaking. By the time I got home, the lie I'd been telling myself had completely fallen apart. Freedom wasn't freedom. It was delay. The knock came at 8:14 the next morning. Polite, measured, official. I opened the door to find 2 officers standing in the hallway, posture neutral, expressions calm. Liam Green? One of them asked. Yes. You are requested for enigma mediation, he said. Please come with us. I don't want to, I said. He nodded once like he'd expected that. This is not optional. I looked past them down the hallway at my neighbor's closed doors. I haven't done anything wrong, I said. No, the officer agreed gently. You haven't. And still they waited. I realized then what Edgar had given me. Not mercy, not escape, time. Just enough for me to understand how completely the world already belonged to him, and how little it had ever belonged to me. Chapter 5 Escort. They didn't handcuff me. That was the first humiliation. The officers stood back as I locked my door, watching with polite patience. Like this was an inconvenience we were all enduring together. One of them even held the elevator button for me. No one touched me. No one raised their voice, which meant there was nothing to fight. We rode down in silence. The older officer kept his hands folded in front of him, eyes forward. The younger one glanced at me once, quick, unreadable, then looked away. Outside, a marked car waited at the curb. Clean, unremarkable. The kind you'd never notice if you weren't the one being put into it. This is voluntary compliance, the older officer said as the door opened. I need you to understand that. I stared at him. It doesn't feel voluntary. He met my eyes steadily. I know. I got in. The door closed with a soft, final sound. No locks clicked. No barrier rose. The city slid past the window like it always had, indifferent and busy and full of people who still believed their lives were theirs. Where are you taking me? I asked. To mediation, he repeated. Enigma affairs. My mouth went dry. I didn't agree to mediation. You were designated, he said. Designated. The word settled in my chest like something heavy and immovable. I tried again. I want a lawyer present. You may request counsel, he replied calmly. You will be informed of your options once you arrive. Once you arrive. The building wasn't a precinct. That was the second humiliation. Glass and steel rose ahead of us, smooth and anonymous, tucked between financial towers like it belonged there. No signage, no banners, just a discreet seal etched into the stone near the entrance. Something old, formal, and utterly uninterested in being questioned. Inside, everything was quiet. No holding cells, no metal detectors, no raised voices. A woman met us in the lobby, impeccably dressed, tablet in hand. She smiled at the officers and nodded at me like I was expected. Mr. Green, she said. Thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice, I said. Her smile didn't falter. Of course you did. She turned and walked, assuming I'd follow. I did. The room they brought me to looked more like a conference suite than anything official. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, pitcher of water already poured. This is a preliminary consultation, the woman explained as she took a seat across from me. We'll clarify expectations and answer any questions you may have. I don't consent to anything, I said immediately. She nodded, fingers steepled. Consent has already been noted. My heart stuttered. To what? To acknowledgement, she replied smoothly. An enigma has formally declared intent. I felt dizzy. Declared intent to do what? Her gaze softened. Not with pity, but with something practiced and careful. To retain you as a mate. The words hit harder than any blow. I didn't agree, I said again, louder this time. I didn't consent. I want to file a complaint. You may, she said. It will be recorded. And investigated? She paused. Enigma declarations are not subject to reversal, she said finally. They are subject to accommodation. I stared at her. So that's it. No, she said gently. That's the beginning. She slid a document across the table. Not a contract. An overview. Pages of dense text outlining statutes I'd never heard of, precedents dating back decades, exceptions carved so carefully they looked intentional. Enigma mating is classified as a stabilization event, she continued. Interference is considered harmful to the enigma, the declared mate, and the public. The public? I echoed hoarsely. Yes, she said. Enigmas are rare. Their attachments are treated as matters of state interest. My hands curled into fists. So I'm property. She shook her head immediately. No, you are protected. I laughed. A broken, incredulous sound. From what? She met my eyes, voice calm and certain. From being separated. The meeting ended with a schedule. Not demands. Not threats. Appointments. Evaluations. A return date. When I left the building, the officers were already waiting to take me home. You're free to go, the older one said as we reached my door. I unlocked it with shaking hands. As I stepped inside, my phone vibrated. One message. Unknown sender. You did well today. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Somewhere deep in my chest, something tight and panic-twisted. Not relief, not fear, but the sickening realization that he knew exactly where I was. And that the world had just confirmed I was exactly where I was supposed to be. If you like stories that don't just cross the line, but erase it completely, the kind that make silence feel loud, and morality feel optional, welcome home. Like, share, comment, because the algorithm loves chaos almost as much as you do. Chapter 6, The Law. I didn't go back to Edgar. Not that day. Not the next. I did everything else first. I called every number I could find, rights groups, advocacy lines, legal clinics that advertised neutrality like a shield. I learned very quickly which ones hung up politely and which ones transferred me until the line went dead. The Omega helpline answered on the third ring. I think an enigma has declared me, I said, forcing the words out carefully. I didn't consent. I need to know what my options are. There was a pause. Not confusion. Recognition. Are you safe right now? The operator asked. Yes, I said. I'm at home. Another pause. Papers shifting. Keys clicking. Mr. Green, she said gently. Enigma declarations are extremely rare. If one has been filed, most conventional options won't apply. What does that mean? I asked. It means, she said, choosing each word with care, that separation is not something we're authorized to assist with. My throat tightened. So you won't help me. I can help you understand, she said. But I can't intervene. Understanding felt like another word for surrender. I thanked her and hung up before my voice could break. The Alpha Legal Collective was next. They sounded confident at first. Sharp voices, assertive language, promises of precedent. That confidence evaporated the moment I mentioned the name Blackwell. Edgar Blackwell? The attorney repeated. Yes. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. We can't represent you. You didn't even ask what happened, I said. We don't need to, he replied. Enigma mating rights are federal. Blackwell tier enigmas are foundational. Foundational to what? I demanded. To the system you're calling me from, he said quietly. I sat there long after the call ended. Phone pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. By the third day, the articles started finding me. Not directly, not obviously. Suggested reads. Academic papers. Old case summaries buried behind paywalls. I read until my eyes burned, learning the shape of the cage one clause at a time. Enigmas were classified as stabilizers, biological anomalies whose attachments reduced volatility. Their mating bonds weren't treated as relationships. They were treated as events. Once declared, the law assumed psychological convergence, physiological adaptation, mutual benefit over time. Consent was presumed retroactively because refusal was considered a symptom of destabilization. I laughed when I read that, came out thin and hysterical. So if I said no, it only proved I needed to be kept closer. I tried activism next. Anonymous forums, private messages, people who spoke in careful language about bodily autonomy and biological coercion. They all said the same thing eventually. I'm so sorry. This isn't a fight we can win. Be careful. One person, an older Omega with a verified account, sent me a private message. Enigmas don't pursue often. When they do, the world bends so they don't have to. That night, I dreamed of doors that opened only inward. On the fourth day, the summons arrived. Not dramatic, not threatening. A formal notice delivered digitally and physically, stamped with the same discreet seal I'd seen on the building downtown. Return for integration assessment. Attendance mandatory. I didn't go immediately. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall, feeling the strange pull in my chest tighten. Not pain, not fear, but a pressure that eased slightly when I thought about complying. That scared me more than anything else. When I finally stood, my legs carried me to the door without shaking. I didn't feel brave. I felt processed. As I stepped into the hallway, my phone vibrated again. One message. You don't have to keep hurting yourself trying to fight this. Come back. I'll take care of you. I deleted it. My hands still trembled afterward. The escort was waiting downstairs. Polite, silent, unavoidable. As the car pulled away from my building, I watched my window disappear from view and understood something with brutal clarity. The law wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. And it was delivering me back to the one person who never needed to chase me at all. Chapter 7, Integration. The building looked different the second time. Not because it had changed, but because I had. The escort didn't speak as they guided me through the lobby, past security that waved us through without scanning, without checking credentials. My name was already in the system. My presence already anticipated. That was the pattern I was starting to recognize. I wasn't being taken somewhere. I was being returned. They led me to a private elevator. No buttons, no mirrors, just soft light and the faint hum of ascent. I focused on my breathing, slow and deliberate, the way therapists taught you when panic threatened to hollow you out. It didn't help. The doors opened onto a floor that felt less like an office and more like a private residence disguised as one. Clean lines, warm materials, too much space, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Edgar Blackwell was waiting. He stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, posture relaxed in a way that made my skin prickle. He wasn't wearing a suit, just dark slacks and a pressed shirt, sleeves buttoned neatly at the wrist. Immaculate, controlled. He turned when he heard us enter. His gaze landed on me and stayed there. No smile, no apology, no heat. Thank you, you can leave, he said to the escort. They bowed their heads, not deeply, but enough to make my stomach drop, and left us alone. The doors closed. Silence settled. I forced myself to speak before he could. I didn't agree to this, I said. I tried to stop it. I know, he replied calmly. That was it. No justification. No denial. I contacted lawyers. I continued, anger sharpening my voice. Activists. Helplines. Everyone. I'm aware. My hands curled into fists. Then you know this isn't consent. He regarded me for a long moment, expression unreadable. Consent, he said finally, is a human framework designed for symmetry. I stared at him. And this isn't? No, he said simply. He gestured toward a chair. Sit. I didn't move. The air shifted subtle, controlled. Not the overwhelming pressure from before. Just enough to make my balance feel slightly off, my instincts tightening like a pulled thread. I hated that my body noticed before my mind did. I said sit, he repeated, not raising his voice. I sat. The pressure eased immediately. There, he said softly. Good boy. The praise made my jaw clench. He moved then, crossing the room with measured steps, stopping a careful distance away. Not touching, not crowding, watching me like something volatile and valuable in equal measure. This is an integration assessment, he said. Not a confinement. Feels like one. You're here voluntarily, he replied. I let out a sharp laugh. The police escorted me. They escort many people, he said calmly. You walked. I hated that he was right. He turned slightly, picking up a thin tablet from the table and setting it aside without looking at it. I won't pretend the law favors you, he continued. It doesn't. You don't sound sorry. I'm not, he said. But I am careful. He looked at me then, not like an anomaly, not like a possession, but like a system under stress. This bond occurred, he said, whether you accept it or not. The question now is how much damage you do to yourself resisting something irreversible. My chest tightened. So what? You expect me to be grateful? No, he replied. I expect you to be honest. About what? About how exhausted you are. The words hit too close. I looked away, jaw tight, refusing to give him the satisfaction of acknowledgement. You're not being punished, he continued quietly. You're being integrated. He stepped closer, still not touching, but I felt him all the same, that quiet gravity pulling at my instincts. You can scream, he said. You can fight. You can call me a monster. My breath hitched. It won't change the outcome, he added. But it will hurt you. I met his gaze again, fury burning hot and helpless in my chest. And what do you get out of this? I demanded. No, I say, backing away before he's even touched me. My heel catches on the edge of the rug and I stumble, fury flaring hot and desperate. You don't get to do this. Not again. Edgar doesn't move right away. He watches me with that terrible patience, like resistance is something to be waited out rather than overcome. Liam, he says quietly, you're already shaking. You know it has to done. Don't. I snap. Don't say my name like that. I turn to leave. I don't make it 2 steps. His hand closes around my wrist, firm, unyielding, and the force of the stop jolts all the way up my arm. I twist immediately, trying to break free, nails scraping uselessly against his sleeve. Let go, I shout, striking his chest with my free hand. Once, twice, hard. He absorbs it without reaction. Instead, he pulls. I slam into him, breath tearing out of me as his other arm comes around my back, locking me there. My forehead knocks against his collarbone. I snarl and shove at his chest, clawing at the front of his shirt, fingers catching fabric and yanking it out of place. Get off me, I scream. Enough, he says, not loud, not sharp. Final. I buck against him, fury and panic crashing together until I can't tell which one is driving me. My hands scrabble at his shoulders, his collar, his throat. I rake my nails down his neck hard enough to sting. He hisses in a breath, but he doesn't release me. Instead, he shifts his grip, turning us, walking me backward until my spine hits the wall with a dull thud. The impact knocks the air out of my lungs. I gasp, and that's when the pressure hits. Not scent, not heat, authority. It rolls through me, heavy and suffocating, pressing straight through my instincts and into my bones. My legs falter. I try to brace myself, but my knees betray me, folding uselessly. Edgar follows me down, one knee between mine, body blocking every escape. One hand slides up to cradle the back of my head. Not tender, not cruel, controlling the angle, holding me in place while my breath breaks apart. Stop! I choke. Please, please. Shoo! He murmurs immediately, forehead pressing briefly to mine. You're safe. You're just fighting something you can't outrun. I thrash again, weaker now, hands striking his chest, his shoulders, pushing at him desperately. He doesn't stop me. He lets me exhaust myself. My shirt twists under his grip as he pins my wrists above my head. Fabric riding up, buttons biting into my skin. I sob in rage, chest heaving, every nerve screaming as the pressure builds. Too much, too close, too intimate. Look at me, he says. I shake my head violently. No! He waits. The pressure tightens. I break. I look. His eyes are dark, focused, unblinking, terrifyingly calm. This is happening, he says quietly. You can fight it, or you can survive it. I scream his name and slam my forehead forward, catching his jaw hard enough to make my vision flash. For the first time, his breath stutters, but his hold only tightens. Enough, he repeats, voice lower now. That's enough. He shifts us again, movements precise, practiced, guiding my body despite my resistance, repositioning me as if I'm something fragile and dangerous at the same time. Every adjustment feels invasive. Every touch steals another piece of ground. My body reacts in ways I hate. Pressure, heat, overwhelm. I sob, nails digging into his arms, scratching, clinging without meaning to. Stop. Please, Edgar. I can't. I know, he says, voice suddenly close to my ear. I know. I've got you. His hand slides to my throat, Not choking, not squeezing. Just there, anchoring, forcing my attention back into my body when it tries to flee. Good boy, he murmurs when my resistance finally breaks into shaking. Good. Stay. I don't remember when the screaming turns into hoarse begging. I don't remember when my body stops fighting and just endures. I remember pressure. Deep, inescapable, reshaping something inside me. I remember pain flaring and then blurring into something dizzying and unbearable. I remember crying his name like it's a curse and a plea at the same time. And I remember the moment my instincts finally snap into place. The moment something locks. I go still with a broken sound. Edgar freezes. Then slowly he exhales. It's done, he says, voice rough for the first time. My body trembles violently beneath him. I can't move, can't think. Every nerve feels stretched too tight, then suddenly held together by something external. He stays close, holding me upright, one hand firm at my back, the other smoothing over my hair in slow, grounding strokes. Breathe, he murmurs. That's it. I've got you. I hate that it helps. When he finally eases away, I collapse forward, forehead pressing into his chest, fingers still knotted in his ruined shirt like I'll fall apart if I let go. He doesn't push me off. Instead, he wraps his arms around me, possessive, enclosing, and lowers his head. This doesn't make you weak, he says quietly. It makes you mine. I don't answer. I can't. All I can feel is the weight of him, the bond settling like a verdict, and the horrifying certainty that something fundamental has just been rewritten. And no law in the world will ever undo it. Chapter 9. After the lock. The first thing that changes is the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of tension. The air no longer presses like it's waiting for me to run. It settles instead, heavy and still, like a lid placed carefully on something dangerous. I lie where he left me, breathing shallowly, body refusing to decide whether it's finished trembling or not. Edgar moves. I flinch automatically. He notices. He always notices. Easy, he says, and the word is different now. Lower. Slower. It doesn't command, it covers. He comes back into my line of sight and kneels beside the bed instead of standing over it. That alone steals the air from my lungs. He's never lowered himself like this before. His hand hovers for a moment, deliberate, giving me time to pull away. I don't. That terrifies me more than anything else. When he touches me, it's careful. Open palm. No grip. He smooths my hair back from my face with quiet precision, thumb brushing once across my temple like he's checking that I'm real. Breathe, he murmurs. You're safe now. I let out a broken sound that might be a laugh if it weren't shaking so badly. Don't, I whisper. Don't say that. He doesn't argue. Instead, he adjusts the blanket around me, tucking it in like this is something he's done 100 times. His movements are practiced now, not searching, not uncertain. Certain in a way that feels worse. There, he says softly. That's better. I hate that my body agrees. My limbs feel heavy, pliant, like the fight has drained out of them completely. I stare at the ceiling, jaw clenched so tight it aches. You hurt me, I say. I know, Edgar replies immediately. No pause. No defensiveness. I won't again, he adds. I turn my head sharply. You're lying. No, he says calmly. The bond is complete. Force is inefficient now. The way he says it, like a logistical fact, makes my stomach twist. He sits on the edge of the bed, close enough that I can feel the heat of him without being trapped by it. One hand rests on the mattress near my hip, not touching, just there. You don't have to fight anymore, he says. You don't have to prove anything. My throat burns. You think this makes it better? I think, he says, voice quiet, that it makes it over. His fingers finally brush my arm, light, grounding. When I tense, he stills immediately. Tell me if it's too much, he says. The words don't make sense. Not from him. I don't trust you, I say hoarsely. I know, he answers. You don't need to. He shifts closer anyway, slow enough that I can track every inch of movement. His arm comes around my shoulders. Not restraining, not enclosing. Just there, warm and solid. I shake, breath hitching, and to my horror, I lean into it. Edgar's breath stutters once. Just once. Good, he murmurs, so quiet it almost hurts. You're doing so well. The praise lands deep and wrong and relieving all at once. My hands curl into the fabric of his shirt without permission. He doesn't comment on it. Instead, he adjusts, drawing me in carefully, letting my head rest against his chest like this is allowed now. His hand moves in slow, repetitive strokes down my back, counting something only he knows. You don't have to be sharp here, he says softly. You don't have to survive. I close my eyes despite myself. I'll take care of you, Edgar continues, voice steady and terrifyingly sincere. I'll make the decisions. I'll carry the weight. My chest tightens. And if I don't want that? I whisper. His hand pauses, then resumes gentler than before. Then I'll wait, he says. But I won't let you go. He presses his lips briefly to my hair. Not a kiss meant for desire, but for claim, and exhales. Rest, Liam, he murmurs. You're mine now. You don't need to stay awake. I hate how safe my body feels as the words sink in. I hate how easily my eyes close. And somewhere in the quiet, wrapped in his arms, I realize the most frightening part isn't what he's taken from me. It's how carefully he's begun to keep what's left. If you liked the story, I'd be so grateful if you could subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Your support means the world to me and helps more people discover the story. Thanks for being here, and sorry for interrupting. Chapter 10 Morning. I wake to quiet, not the empty kind. No echoes, no tension humming under my skin, but something curated, controlled. The light is dimmed to a soft gray, curtains drawn just enough to let morning exist without intruding. For a moment I don't move. I wait for panic. It doesn't come. That's how I know something is wrong. My body feels heavy, settled in a way that isn't natural to me. Not trapped, placed. I shift slightly and feel warmth at my back. Solid, steady, unmistakably there. Edgar. His arm is draped over my waist, loose enough that I could slip out if I wanted to. That's the lie. We both know I wouldn't make it far. My breath stutters anyway. Good morning, he murmurs, voice thick with sleep but still precise, still controlled. I stiffen. He feels it immediately. Easy, he says softer now. His arm tightens just a fraction, not restraining, just anchoring. You're all right. I swallow. Don't. He doesn't ask what I mean. Instead, he shifts back slightly, giving me space without removing his presence entirely. The mattress dips as he props himself up on one elbow, looking down at me like I'm something fragile that might crack if handled wrong. You slept, he says. That's good. I laugh weakly. I didn't plan to. You didn't need to, he replies. Your body did. I push myself up, dragging the blanket with me like a shield. My shirt, his shirt, I realize distantly, is rumpled, collar stretched where I must have clawed it earlier. Shame flares hot in my chest. He notices that too. It's all right, Edgar says quietly. You were overwhelmed. I glare at him. You don't get to narrate me. Something almost like amusement flickers through his eyes. Not mockery. Fondness. I do now, he says. I open my mouth to argue, then stop, because he isn't threatening me. He isn't correcting me. He's stating a fact with the same calm certainty he uses for everything else. He swings his legs over the side of the bed and stands, already composed, already dressed like this morning was just another item on a schedule I don't have access to. I'll have breakfast brought up, he says. You'll eat. I'm not hungry. That wasn't a question. The firmness is gentle. That makes it worse. He turns back to me, expression softening again when he sees my hands shaking where they clutch the blanket. You don't have to get up yet, he adds. Take a minute. I hate that he gives it to me. When the tray arrives, he brings it himself. No staff, no audience. He sets it on the table by the bed with quiet care, then sits beside me instead of across the room. Sit up a little, he says. I hesitate. The air doesn't change. No pressure. No correction. He just waits. I do it. That's it, he murmurs. Good. The word lands like a weight on my chest. I glare at him again, but my body betrays me, settling against the pillows like it's been waiting for permission. He pours water into a glass and holds it out. When I don't take it, he doesn't sigh or scold, just brings it closer. Drink, he says gently. Slowly. I do. Each swallow feels like another line crossed. When I'm done, he takes the glass and sets it aside, then adjusts the blanket around my shoulders with infuriating familiarity. "These are the rules," he says calmly, as if he's telling me the weather. My stomach drops. "Rules?" "Yes." He meets my eyes. "They're for your safety." I laugh, sharp and bitter. "Of course they are." He doesn't rise to it. "You eat when meals are brought," he continues. "You sleep when you're tired. You don't leave the residence alone. Medical appointments are not optional. And if I say no?" His gaze doesn't waver. "Then I'll say it again," he replies. More firmly. I look away, jaw tight. He reaches out, slow enough that I can track the movement, and cups my chin between his fingers. Not forcing me to look, just there, ready if I don't. "You don't have to like this," Edgar says softly. "You just have to stop hurting yourself by fighting it." My throat burns. "And what am I supposed to do?" I whisper. "Just obey." His thumb brushes once along my jaw, a grounding touch that makes my breath hitch. "Yes," he says. "For now." Then quieter, dangerously sincere. "Let me take care of you." I hate the way my body leans into his hand. I hate the way my pulse slows. And when he presses his forehead briefly to mine, voice barely more than breath. "That's my good boy," he murmurs. I realize the fight isn't gone. It's just being managed. By him. Chapter 11 Scene. The first time Edgar takes me outside. It isn't announced. No press. No ceremony. No warning. He tells me we're leaving 10 minutes before we do. "Put your shoes on," he says, calm, precise. "And the coat on the chair." I hesitate just long enough for him to notice. His gaze lifts from his tablet to my face. "Now," he adds gently. I obey. The car waiting downstairs isn't marked. The driver doesn't speak. Edgar opens the door for me himself, one hand steady at my lower back. Not pushing, not guiding, just there. A reminder that I'm not moving through space alone anymore. The city looks different from the inside of his car. People glance at us and then look away too quickly. A woman on the sidewalk stiffens when she catches Edgar's profile through the glass. An alpha farther down the block lowers his head instinctively. I feel it then, subtle but unmistakable. Recognition. My stomach knots. "Where are we going?" Ask. "Lunch," Edgar replies. "You need sunlight." I snort quietly. "That's a rule too?" He glances at me. "Yes." The restaurant is quiet in the way expensive places always are. Private rooms. Soft voices. Staff who don't ask questions. The moment we step inside, conversation thins. Not stops. Shifts. People look at Edgar. Then at me. Then away. I feel exposed in a way I never have before. Not naked. Not ashamed. But identified. Like something about me has been decided publicly without my input. Edgar's hand settles at the small of my back again as we're led to our table. I stiffen. He feels it immediately. "You're all right," he murmurs, low enough that only I can hear. "Stay with me." I hate how grounding it sounds. We sit. Menus arrive. Edgar orders for both of us without asking. I open my mouth to protest. He looks at me. Not warning, not pressure, just expectation. I close it again. The food comes quickly. Pick at it. Appetite gone. Nerves humming. "Eat," Edgar says softly. "I'm not hungry." He doesn't correct me. Doesn't escalate. He waits. The silence stretches. People are watching. I can feel it now. The weight of their curiosity. The sharpness of their interest. Someone knows. They all do. My fork shakes as I lift it. "Good," Edgar murmurs when I take the first bite. The word lands warm and humiliating. I eat more after that. Halfway through the meal, I make my mistake. I shift in my chair, angling my body slightly away from him, just enough to reclaim a sliver of space. My foot slides back, toe brushing the leg of the table. It's nothing. Barely defiance. Edgar's hand closes gently but decisively around my knee under the table. I freeze. He doesn't squeeze. Doesn't warn. Just holds. "Stay facing me," he says quietly. "Don't withdraw in public." My breath catches. "Why?" "Because it unsettles you," he replies. "And it invites attention." I swallow. "You don't get to decide how I sit." His thumb presses once, subtle, grounding. "I already did," he says calmly. I try to pull my leg back. The pressure increases, not painful, not forceful, just enough to remind my body where it is allowed to be. My pulse spikes. Heat crawls up my spine. I stop moving. There, Edgar says softly. That's better. The pressure eases immediately. Relief floods me before I can stop it. That's when it hits. Not the control. The relief. I stare down at my plate, chest tight, shame burning hot behind my eyes. When the meal ends, Edgar stands and offers me his hand. Not because I need it, because it signals something. I take it. The staff bows as we pass. Outside, the city exhales around us again. Edgar doesn't let go of my hand until we're back in the car. As soon as the door closes, I pull away. I'm not a child. I snap. You can't. I know, he says calmly. I falter. You're an adult, he continues. Which is why I expect you to learn. My hands curl into fists. Learn what? That resisting me costs you peace, he replies evenly. And compliance doesn't. I laugh bitterly. So that's it? Behave and I get rewarded. His gaze softens. Not with pity, but with something terrifyingly close to approval. Yes, he says. Exactly. Silence fills the car. My chest aches. Quietly. So quietly I almost miss it. I realize something about the last 10 minutes. I hadn't been thinking about escape. I'd been thinking about when he'd say it again. Good. The realization makes me feel sick. Edgar notices my expression shift. He reaches out, fingers brushing my wrist, grounding and possessive. You did well, he says softly. Public situations are difficult at first. I close my eyes. The praise settles deep, too deep, and for the first time the thought isn't I need to get away. It's, did I do enough to earn that again? Chapter 12 terms. Confirmation. The room is white in a way that feels intentional. Not sterile, authoritative. There are 3 people present besides me. A physician, a legal observer, and Edgar. No one asks me how I feel. The physician doesn't look at me when she speaks. Results confirm successful gestation, she says calmly. Early stage. Stable. The word lands wrong. Gestation. I stare at the far wall, hands clenched in my lap. No, I say. You're wrong. She finally looks at me then, briefly, professionally. There is no margin for error, she replies. The legal observer nods and types something. I laugh once. Comes out thin and cracked. I didn't agree to this. No one responds. Edgar does not interrupt. That's how I know this is real. When the physician finishes, she leaves first. The observer follows. The door closes behind them with a soft click that sounds final. I don't move. Edgar does. He steps closer. Not looming, not distant. And kneels in front of me, bringing his eyes level with mine. This is new. I will manage this, he says quietly. I shake my head hard. You can't. This isn't. You don't have to decide anything. He continues, voice steady. Your body is under stress. I won't add to it. My throat burns. Get it out of me. He doesn't flinch. That's not an option, he says gently. And you know it. I shove at his chest with both hands. Weak, furious, useless. He catches my wrists immediately. Not tight, just secure, and holds them against his chest. Easy, he murmurs. You're safe. I'm not. You make me feel weak. I shout. You are, he says calmly. Because I'm here. I will handle everything for you. The certainty in his voice steals my breath. He releases my wrists slowly, like he's de-escalating something volatile. I'll take care of you, Edgar repeats. All of it. 2. The rule break. It happens 2 days later. I wait until he's in a meeting. I know his schedule now. I hate that I know it. I slip my phone out of the drawer and make a call I already know won't help. An activist group. Private. Discreet. I need asylum, I say. Enigma claim. Blackwell. There's a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I'm sorry, the voice says. We can't. The door opens. Edgar steps inside. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't interrupt the call. He just waits. My chest tightens. I hang up. I had to try. I snap, anger flaring hot and desperate. You don't get to erase my life. He closes the door behind him. Come here, he says. I don't move. He walks to me instead. No pressure. No pheromones. Just presence. That call destabilized you, he says calmly. I can feel it. It was my right. He nods. Before. The word slices deep. I shove him again, harder this time. My hands hit his chest. My nails scrape skin. Don't touch me. I spit. He lets me hit him. Once. Twice. Then his arms come around me. Not violent, not rushed. Containing me completely. Drawing me in until my forehead hits his shoulder and my fists lose leverage. Enough, he says softly. I struggle for a few seconds more. Then my body gives up. He doesn't release me immediately. He waits until my breathing evens out. There, he murmurs. That's better. I hate that it's true. 3. Preemptive obedience. It doesn't happen all at once. The small things. I stop standing when he enters a room because it makes him look at me differently. I eat without arguing because he watches until I do. I don't ask about leaving because the answer never changes. One evening, I reach for the door out of habit. I stop myself halfway. Not because he told me not to, because I know. Edgar notices anyway. His gaze lifts from his tablet. You remembered. I don't answer. Good boy, he says quietly. Something in my chest twists painfully. Later, I realize I've been waiting for him to say it again. For the structure. The document is thin. That's the worst part. No theatrics. No dramatics. Just clarity. Edgar places it on the table in front of me. These are the rules, he says. They aren't punishments. They're supports. I scan the page. Fixed sleep and wake times. Mandatory meals. Restricted external communication. No unsupervised travel. Medical compliance without exception. Emotional regulation protocols. At the bottom, caregiver authority, Edgar Blackwell. I laugh weakly. You wrote yourself into my life. He tilts his head. I formalized what already exists. I don't have to sign this. I asked. No, he agrees. You don't. I look up at him. Then why show me? I questioned. So you understand the structure holding you, he replies. So you stop testing the edges. He steps closer, resting one hand lightly on my stomach. Not possessive, not sexual. Claiming. You don't need to be strong anymore, Edgar says softly. You don't need to decide. You don't need to fight. His thumb moves in a slow, grounding motion. I've got you, he murmurs. That's my job now. I stare at the paper, at the rules, at the way my hands have stopped shaking. I don't sign it. I don't push it away either. Edgar notices. He always does. That's enough for today, he says gently. You did very well. The praise settles over me like a blanket. And somewhere in the quiet, horrifyingly, I realize I'm not thinking about escape. I'm thinking about how to stay good. Chapter 14, Consolidation. The pregnancy changes the way Edgar watches me. Not constantly, he never needs to, but differently, like he's tracking something delicate that might destabilize if mishandled. His hand finds my back more often now. My wrist, the curve of my shoulder when I'm unsteady. He corrects without speaking. I let him. Doctors come and go. Specialists. Observers. Every appointment ends the same way, with Edgar standing slightly in front of me, answering questions that should have been mine. Stress levels. Managed. Compliance. Excellent. They look at me once. Briefly. Then back to him. On the drive home after one appointment I finally snap. I can talk, I say. You don't have to answer for me. Edgar doesn't take his eyes off the road. I know, he says. But it upsets you when they look at you too long. That's not your decision. He glances at me then. Not cold, not angry. Protective. It is now, he says gently. I turn toward the window, throat tight. His hand settles over mine on the seat between us. Not squeezing. Just claiming. Good boy, he murmurs when I don't pull away. The possessiveness sharpens as my body changes. Edgar adjusts my schedule himself. Earlier rest, fewer outings, shorter exposure to crowds. When I protest, he listens. Then he decides anyway. You're not being restricted, he explains calmly. You're being prioritized. The difference feels theoretical. One evening, he brings paperwork instead of dinner. He sets it on the table between us, neat and understated. Marriage? I say flatly after one glance. Yes, Edgar replies. I laugh weakly. You already own me. Why bother? He considers that. Because ownership without recognition creates instability, he says. And because the law protects spouses differently than mates. My chest tightens. This isn't a proposal. No, he agrees. It's a consolidation. I stare at the document. No poetry. No declarations. Just clauses. Medical authority. Public legitimacy. Inheritance. Custody. My hands shake. You didn't ask, I whisper. Edgar stands and comes around the table. He crouches in front of me again, always eye level when it matters. I'm asking now, he says softly. Not because I need permission, but because I want compliance without fear. I swallow. And if I say no? He doesn't hesitate. Then I will proceed anyway, he says calmly. But you'll be distressed. I don't want that. The honesty hurts more than threats ever could. He reaches for my hands, enclosing them completely. This gives you protection, Edgar continues. It limits who can touch you, who can question you, who can make claims. His thumb brushes my knuckles, grounding. It gives the child legitimacy that cannot be challenged. I flinch at that. You don't need to love me, he says quietly. You already rely on me. This just acknowledges reality. Silence stretches. I realize, horrified, that I'm not thinking about escape. I'm thinking about how much worse it would be to say no. When? I ask finally. Edgar exhales, slow, controlled. Relief, barely contained. Soon, he says. Before your body is under more strain. The ceremony is small, private. No romance. No vows written by hand. Just signatures, witnesses, a quiet acknowledgement from the state that what Edgar claimed biologically now belongs to him socially. When it's done, he places a ring on my finger. Not ornate. Functional. Heavy enough that you'll feel it, he says. So you remember you're not alone. My hand trembles. That night, he holds me closer than usual. Not tighter, just nearer, his palm resting over my stomach like a seal. You did well today, he murmurs into my hair. I know it was difficult. I close my eyes. I didn't have a choice, I whisper. Edgar's voice is steady when he answers. No, he says. But you made it easier by trusting me. His hand slides up and down my back in slow, repetitive motions until my breathing evens out. My husband, he says quietly, testing the word like it belongs to him. It does. And the most terrifying part is how my body settles when he says it. Chapter 15, Closed System. By the third trimester, the world has narrowed to the size of the house. Not suddenly. Not violently. It happens the way fog rolls in, soft at first, then total. Edgar restructures my days without announcing it. I wake when the lights shift from night to morning. I eat when food appears. I rest when my body trembles, not because I ask, but because he notices. You're breathing shallow, he says one afternoon, already guiding me toward the couch. Lie down. I'm fine, I mutter out of habit. He doesn't correct me. He just waits, standing there, patient and immovable, until the ache in my back sharpens and I give in. Good, he murmurs as soon as I settle. That's better. The praise lands before I can brace for it. Visitors stop coming. At first, it's medical necessity, then discretion, then security concerns. I ask once, carefully, about leaving the house. Edgar looks at me for a long moment before answering. You don't need to, he says gently. There's nothing out there that won't upset you. That's not your call? I snap, anger flaring thin and tired. He kneels in front of me, slow and deliberate, resting his hands on my knees. It is, he says calmly. I'm responsible for you now. The word now is meaningless. There was never a before. My phone is still mine. That's the clever part. It just stops working the way it used to. Calls drop. Messages delay. Replies come back polite and distant. Eventually, they stop coming at all. One night, I scroll through legal statutes I already know by heart, searching for loopholes that aren't there anymore. Marriage sealed them. Spousal authority supersedes individual claim rights. Enigma custodial privilege overrides bodily autonomy disputes. Pregnancy further restricts movement in the interest of stabilization. I stare at the screen until my eyes burn. There is nowhere left to go. I don't cry. I go downstairs instead. Edgar is in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, preparing something bland and nutrient-dense. He looks up the moment I enter, gaze flicking instinctively to my posture, my face. "What's wrong?" he asks. I laugh, a short broken sound. "You won." He sets the knife down immediately, crosses the space between us. "You're overwhelmed," he says softly. "I'm trapped." I snap. He cups my face with both hands, thumbs steady at my jaw, forcing me to meet his eyes. Not harsh, not cruel. "I know," Edgar says. "That's why you're safe. The logic is airtight. That's the problem." As my body grows heavier, his protectiveness tightens like a seal. He doesn't let me carry anything heavier than a glass. Doesn't let me stand too long. Doesn't let me sleep without checking my breathing. Sometimes I wake to his hand resting on my back, counting. "Go back to sleep," he murmurs when I stir. "I've got you." I hate how quickly I obey. One afternoon, I try to sit in the window seat, my old spot, before everything. Edgar notices immediately. "That chair isn't supportive," he says. "It's fine," I reply, sharper than I mean to. He doesn't argue. He just brings a cushion, adjusts it, fixes my posture with gentle, unyielding hands. "There," he says. "Better." I slump back, defeated. He presses a kiss to my hair. Not romantic. Affirming. "My good boy," he murmurs. The words wrap around me tighter than fear ever did. That night, I finally say it. "There's no way out," I whisper into the dark. Edgar's arm tightens around me, palm firm and warm over my stomach. "No," he agrees. "There isn't." I wait for the terror. Instead, what comes is something worse. Relief. He exhales slowly, satisfied, and presses his forehead to the back of my neck. "You don't have to look for exits anymore," Edgar murmurs. "You live here, with me, where I can keep you." His voice is soft, certain, loving in the only way he knows how. And as I lie there, surrounded by safety I never asked for, I realize the final cruelty of it all. The cage doesn't feel like bars anymore. Feels like home.